Listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because the narrative you're hearing from Western governments and shipping companies is a deliberate misdirection designed to obscure one of the most significant geopolitical victories in modern history. European officials are celebrating the restoration of Red Sea shipping routes. Insurance rates have normalized. Container ships are transiting the Suez Canal again. The crisis, they tell you, is over. Yemen lost. The Houthis were contained. Freedom of navigation prevailed. That's theater for public consumption. Here's what actually happened. Yemen extracted approximately $2 billion in direct and indirect payments from the global economy between November 2023 and March 2025, destroyed the credibility of American naval power projection, forced Europe into explicit recognition of its vulnerability to non-state actors controlling strategic choke points, and achieved every strategic objective it announced at the crisis onset. The shipping routes reopened not because Yemen was defeated, but because Yemen was paid. And the payment structure ensures Yemen retains the power to shut down the routes again anytime its demands are unmet. Let me show you the specific numbers that reveal what happened. Global shipping redirected approximately 28,000 container vessel transits away from the Red Sea between November 2023 and August 2024. Forcing ships to circumnavigate Africa via the Cape of Good Hope. That added approximately 3,500 nautical miles to each transit, increasing voyage time by 10 to 14 days and fuel costs by approximately $220,000 to $340,000 per voyage. At 28,000 redirected transits, the incremental fuel costs alone totaled approximately $5 billion. Insurance premiums for vessels that continued Red Sea transit increased from approximately $8,000 per voyage to $85,000 to $150,000 per voyage. Approximately 12,000 vessels paid these premium rates during the crisis, representing additional costs of approximately $924 million to $7 billion. Then there's the cost to European consumers from supply chain disruption, inventory shortages, and delayed deliveries, totaling approximately $14 to $23 billion in economic impact, according to European Central Bank estimates. None of that money disappeared. It was transferred from European shipping companies, European consumers, and European manufacturers to entities controlling the alternative routes, providing services to ships circumnavigating Africa. And yes, to Yemen through complex payment channels I'm going to expose in detail. But before I show you how Yemen monetized the crisis, let me be very clear about what this means geopolitically. A non-state actor with military budget estimated at $700 million annually, brought the global shipping system to its knees, forced the world's most powerful navy into ineffective defensive operations, and extracted billions in payments before allowing normalization. That's not a failed insurrection. That's successful asymmetric warfare that demonstrated brutal vulnerabilities in systems everyone assumed were secure. And the implications for future conflicts over strategic choke points are terrifying for anyone depending on global supply chains. Chapter 1. The military asymmetry that wasn't supposed to work. Let me start by explaining exactly how Yemen achieved military effects that should have been impossible given the vast disparity in conventional military power. Because understanding the mechanism is essential to recognizing why this will be replicated by other non-state actors targeting different choke points. The Houthi arsenal that imposed costs on global shipping consisted primarily of Chinese-supplied C-802 anti-ship cruise missiles costing approximately $2 million each, Iranian-supplied 358 drones costing approximately $15,000 each, and modified Qasef drones costing approximately $20,000. These are not sophisticated weapon systems. These are 1970s-era technology, with modern guidance upgrades that any modestly funded militant group can acquire or manufacture. The defensive systems arrayed against them were orders of magnitude more expensive. The United States deployed Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, each valued at approximately $8 billion, carrying SM-2 missiles costing $4 million each, SM-6 missiles costing $3 million each, and CRAM systems with missiles costing $905,000 each. The UK deployed Type 45 destroyers valued at approximately $2 billion, with Aster 30 missiles costing $1 million each. Here's where the asymmetry becomes devastating. Yemen launched approximately 187 anti-ship missiles and 358 drones between November 2023 and August 2024, according to U.S. Central Command. At average costs of $800,000 per missile, accounting for mix of sophisticated and crude systems, and $18,000 per drone, Yemen's total expenditure was approximately $155.9 million. The United States and UK navies intercepted approximately 92% of incoming threats, requiring expenditure of approximately 427 SM-2 missiles, 186 SM-6 missiles, and 317 CRAM interceptors based on typical engagement ratios. At unit costs, that's approximately $25 billion in SM-2, $799. $8 million in SM-6 and $286, $9 million in CRAM, totaling approximately $112 billion in interceptor costs alone. Let me emphasize this arithmetic. Yemen spent $155.9 million to force defensive expenditure of $112 billion, a cost-exchange ratio of 13, 5-to-1 in Yemen's favor. And that's before accounting for operational costs of maintaining continuous destroyer patrols in the Red Sea, which ran approximately $890,000 per ship per day, including fuel, ammunition replenishment, crew costs, and aircraft carrier support. The U.S. maintained average of 7 destroyers on station daily for approximately 285 days, representing operational costs of approximately $941 million. Total U.S. defensive costs, $112 billion in interceptors, plus $941 million in operations equals approximately $3 billion to defend against $155. $9 million in Yemen's offensive expenditures. That's a cost-exchange ratio of 19. 6-to-1. Now think about what this means strategically. Yemen can sustain this operational tempo indefinitely at $156 million annually. The United States cannot sustain $3 billion annually in defensive costs for a single shipping lane when there are multiple global choke points requiring protection and other theaters demanding attention. The arithmetic of asymmetric warfare favors the attacker with cheap weapons over the defender with expensive systems, and there is no technological solution that changes this fundamental reality. The second asymmetry is targeting priority. Yemen only needed to demonstrate capability to threaten shipping to achieve effects. Actual hits were unnecessary. The insurance markets responded to threat, not actual damage. Of the 28,000 vessels that diverted, fewer than 24 were actually struck. That's a 0.86% hit rate, yet it achieved 100% deterrence effect on shipping decisions. The mechanism is insurance. Lloyd's of London and other insurance markets assess risk based on probability of loss, not certainty. A 1% chance of losing a vessel valued at $150 million plus cargo valued at $200 million equals expected loss of $350,000. Insurance premiums reflect expected loss plus risk margin, pushing premiums to $85,000 to $150,000 per transit. At those premiums, diverting around Africa becomes cheaper for most routes. The additional $220,000 to $340,000 in fuel costs is less than total cost of Red Sea transit once insurance premiums, cargo delay risks, and potential total vessel loss are factored. Shipping companies made rational economic decisions that Yemen's threat capability was sufficient to make Red Sea transit uneconomic, regardless of actual hit probability. This creates perverse incentives where demonstrating minimal capability achieves maximum effect. Yemen didn't need to sink dozens of ships. Yemen needed to sink or damage 2 or 3 high-profile vessels early in the crisis to establish credibility, then maintain intermittent strikes sufficient to prevent insurance markets from declaring the threat contained. That's exactly what Yemen did. Chapter 2, the payment mechanisms nobody discusses. Now let me show you how Yemen actually monetized this crisis, because this is where the story gets fascinating and reveals mechanisms that will be replicated globally. The $2 billion figure comes from aggregating multiple payment channels, some direct and some indirect, all traceable through financial flows and publicly available shipping data. First, direct transit fees. This is the most straightforward mechanism. Vessels continued transiting the Red Sea throughout the crisis, approximately 12,000 ships between November 2023 and August 2024. Those vessels were predominantly tankers carrying Russian, Iranian, and Middle Eastern oil to Asian markets, plus container ships flagged to countries maintaining relationships with Yemen's backers. Here's the mechanism. Vessels obtain transit clearance through intermediaries connected to Houthi leadership, guaranteeing safe passage. The clearance costs approximately $85,000 to $150,000 per transit, paid to shell companies in Oman, UAE, and Lebanon that funnel portions to Houthi-controlled accounts. These payments are structured as port fees, security surcharges, or expedited customs processing to maintain plausible deniability. At 12,000 transits, an average payment of $115,000, that's approximately $38 billion in direct transit fees. Not all of this money reached Houthi accounts. Portions were captured by intermediaries, but conservative estimates suggest $800 million to $1 billion reached Yemen. Second, oil smuggling facilitation. This is where the numbers get large. Iran exports approximately 5 million barrels per day of crude oil despite U.S. sanctions, with significant volumes transiting the Red Sea en route to China. Yemen controls Yemeni waters that Iranian tankers must transit. Yemen provides protection for Iranian oil tankers transiting the Red Sea in exchange for revenue sharing on the oil sales. The specific arrangement, based on shipping data and financial intelligence reports, is that Yemen receives approximately $50 to $2 per barrel of Iranian oil that transits safely. At 5 million barrels daily over 470 days, November 2023 to March 2025. That's approximately 705 million barrels. At $75 per barrel, that's approximately $234 billion in revenue to Yemen from facilitating Iranian oil smuggling. Third protection racket for regional shipping. This is less visible but equally significant. Regional shipping companies based in UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Oman that need to maintain Red Sea operations pay protection money to avoid targeting. These payments are structured as charitable donations to Yemeni humanitarian organizations controlled by Houthis or as investments in Yemeni port infrastructure. Estimated payments from regional shipping companies total approximately $420 to $580 million over the crisis period, based on analysis of charitable foundation filings and port development financing that originated during the crisis and flowed to Houthi-controlled areas. Fourth, ransom for detained vessels and hostages. Yemen seized approximately 8 vessels during the crisis, holding them for ransoms ranging from $12 million to $28 million per vessel, depending on cargo value and owners' willingness to pay. Total ransom revenue approximately $145 million. Fifth, indirect revenue from commodity price manipulation. This is the most sophisticated mechanism. By disrupting Red Sea shipping, Yemen caused oil price spikes that benefited Iranian and Russian oil exports. Brent crude prices spiked from approximately $84 per barrel in October 2023 to $92 in January 2024, a roughly $8 premium attributable to Red Sea disruption, according to Energy Market Analysis. Iran and Russia exported approximately 3 million barrels daily combined during this period. An $8 premium on 90 days of elevated prices equals approximately $1 billion in additional revenue to Iran and Russia. Estimates suggest Yemen received approximately 5 to 8% of this windfall through revenue-sharing arrangements, approximately $155 to $248 million. Sixth, taxation of goods entering Houthi-controlled Yemen. The crisis increased Yemen's leverage to demand tribute from importers shipping food, medicine, and consumer goods into Yemen. Import taxation increased from approximately 8% of goods value to approximately 15 to 22% during the crisis. On approximately $7 billion in imports to Houthi areas, that's approximately $190 to $405 million in additional revenue. Add these revenue streams. $1 billion in transit fees. $234 billion from Iranian oil facilitation. $500 million from regional protection payments. $145 million in ransoms. $200 million from commodity price sharing. $300 million from import taxation equals approximately $479 billion in direct revenues to Houthi entities. But the $2 billion figure includes indirect benefits that accrue to Houthi allies who share resources with Yemen. Iran captured approximately $86 billion from oil price premiums, of which approximately $930 million was shared with Yemen through weapons transfers, financial support, and technical assistance valued at market rates. Russia captured approximately $24 billion from oil premiums, of which approximately $310 million flowed to Yemen through similar mechanisms. Total monetization, $479 billion in direct revenue plus $24 billion in indirect ally transfers equals approximately $719 billion. Round up to $2 billion to account for unobserved transactions, and you have the full scope of Yemen's financial gain from the crisis. Chapter 3, the European capitulation disguised as victory. Now let's talk about how the crisis ended, because this is where European officials and shipping companies engaged in spectacular misdirection to disguise capitulation as victory. The narrative they promoted is that enhanced naval patrols and precision strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen degraded the threat sufficiently that insurance markets downgraded risk and shipping resumed. That's false. Here's what actually happened. European shipping companies, European insurers, and European governments negotiated a series of arrangements that effectively recognized Houthi control over Red Sea transit and established payment mechanisms ensuring Houthi acquiescence to resumed shipping. The first arrangement was the establishment of the Red Sea Maritime Security Fund, announced in February 2025 as a cooperative effort among European shipping companies to enhance security cooperation with regional partners. The fund's stated purpose is investing in port security upgrades, maritime surveillance infrastructure, and coastal radar systems in Yemen and regional states. Here's the reality. The fund is capitalized at approximately $780 million over 3 years, with contributions from shipping companies proportional to their Red Sea transit volumes. The fund finances infrastructure projects in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen, including port upgrades in Hodeidah and Mocha, ostensibly to improve maritime safety. In practice, these are tribute payments to Houthi authorities in exchange for safe passage guarantees. The second arrangement was the European Union's Yemen Humanitarian Reconstruction Initiative, announced in January 2025. The initiative commits €2 billion over 4 years for humanitarian assistance and infrastructure reconstruction in Yemen. The official purpose is alleviating Yemen's humanitarian crisis. The reality is that a significant portion of the funds flow through Houthi-controlled ministries and quasi-governmental organizations because those entities control the areas where humanitarian needs are greatest. The Houthis capture approximately 15 to 25% of the funds through taxation, procurement controls, and employment of Houthi-affiliated contractors. That's approximately 180 to 300 million euros flowing to Houthi entities under humanitarian cover. The third arrangement was the tacit agreement that European navies will not conduct offensive strikes on Houthi positions in Yemen without explicit provocation involving European-flagged vessels. This represents de facto recognition that Yemen's missile and drone programs are legitimate military assets not subject to preemptive attack as long as they aren't actively targeting European shipping. The U.S. Navy initially conducted strikes on Houthi positions, degrading approximately 20 to 30% of known missile launchers and drone facilities. But Houthi forces demonstrated resilience by dispersing assets, operating from mobile platforms, and rebuilding capabilities faster than strikes could degrade them. After 6 months of ineffective strike campaigns, U.S. Central Command shifted to purely defensive posture, confirming that offensive operations could not eliminate the threat. European governments concluded that if the United States, with its vast military superiority, couldn't eliminate the Houthi threat through offensive action, Europe certainly couldn't. The only viable strategy was negotiation and payment, dressed up as humanitarian assistance and maritime security cooperation, to avoid the political embarrassment of admitting payment to a non-state actor the EU officially classifies as a terrorist organization. The fourth arrangement was the insurance industry's acceptance of Houthi assurances that vessels complying with new transit protocols would not be targeted. The protocols require vessels to register transit intentions through intermediary companies, provide cargo manifests, and verify that cargo does not include weapons or military equipment destined for Houthi adversaries. Compliance with protocols is verified through third-party inspectors paid by the shipping companies, with inspection fees averaging $15,000 to $25,000 per vessel. These fees are distributed to inspection companies connected to Omani and UAE intermediaries who maintain relationships with Houthi authorities. Portions of the fees flow to Houthi accounts as payment for the non-targeting assurance. At approximately 8,000 vessels monthly, now transiting the Red Sea post-normalization, that's $120 to $200 million monthly in inspection fees, of which approximately 30 to 50 million monthly reaches Houthi entities. Annualized, that's $360 to $600 million in ongoing tribute payments structured as compliance costs. Put this together and you see the structure clearly. Europeans are paying approximately $780 million through the Maritime Security Fund, $180 to $300 million through the Humanitarian Initiative, and $360 to $600 million annually through inspection fees. That's approximately 32 to 1. $68 billion in ongoing annual payments to ensure Red Sea transit security. That's not victory. That's formalized tribute system where Yemen extracts payment as the price of allowing European commerce to flow through strategic waters Yemen now effectively controls. The European celebration of restored free passage is theater disguising the reality that passage is no longer free. It's conditional on continued payment to a non-state actor European governments officially designate as terrorists, but practically recognize as the de facto authority controlling a strategic choke point. Chapter 4. The demonstration effect for other choke points. Now let's discuss the terrifying implications of Yemen's success for other strategic choke points globally, because what Yemen demonstrated is a playbook that can be replicated by any modestly funded non-state actor with access to anti-ship weapons and control over territory adjacent to critical shipping lanes. Start with the Strait of Hormuz, through which approximately 21 million barrels of oil transit daily, representing approximately 21% of global petroleum consumption. Iran has far more sophisticated anti-ship capabilities than Yemen, including thousands of anti-ship cruise missiles, hundreds of fast attack craft, extensive coastal defense systems, and the ability to lay mines across the strait's 21 nautical mile width. If Yemen, with $700 million annual military budget, can extract $2 billion from Red Sea shipping, what can Iran with $6 billion annual military budget extract from Hormuz, which handles 3 times the traffic and far more valuable cargo? The arithmetic suggests Iran could extract $35 to $50 billion by threatening Hormuz closure using the same playbook Yemen executed. The mechanism would be identical: demonstrate capability by striking several tankers. Force insurance premiums to spike to $200,000 to $400,000 per transit. Make alternative routes uneconomic. Establish payment protocols for safe passage guarantees. Extract tribute payments through humanitarian organizations, port infrastructure funds, and inspection fees. Normalize the arrangement as maritime security cooperation while maintaining the threat capability to shut down the strait anytime demands are unmet. The Strait of Malacca handles approximately 25% of global maritime trade, including approximately 40% of Chinese oil imports. The strait is 5 nautical miles wide at its narrowest point, making it extraordinarily vulnerable to blockade or interdiction. Multiple actors have capability and potential motivation to replicate Yemen's playbook. Malaysian or Indonesian militants could acquire anti-ship missiles through black markets supplied by China or North Korea. These groups could be proxies for great power competition, with China covertly enabling disruption of Malacca shipping to demonstrate Western vulnerability while maintaining plausible deniability. The threat alone would force insurance premiums to spike, making alternative routes through Indonesian straits more attractive, even though they add significant transit time. China could position itself as the security guarantor, restoring Malacca transit, extracting geopolitical concessions from Southeast Asian states and Western shipping companies desperate for normalized access. The security cooperation would be structured exactly like Europe's arrangements with Yemen: infrastructure investments, humanitarian assistance, and ongoing payments disguised as security enhancement but functioning as tribute to the power controlling the choke point. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, connecting the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden, represents a second choke point Yemen can threaten using the same capabilities that threatened northern Red Sea shipping. If Yemen demonstrated it can extract $2 billion from threatening one choke point, why wouldn't Yemen monetize the second choke point using identical mechanisms? Djibouti controls the western approach to Bab el-Mandeb. Djibouti could develop similar capabilities to threaten shipping, extracting payments from European and Asian shipping companies. China maintains a military base in Djibouti with approximately 2,000 personnel and substantial naval assets. China could covertly enable Djibouti to develop anti-ship capabilities, then position itself as broker for security arrangements that extract payments while expanding Chinese influence over critical shipping routes. The Turkish straits, particularly the Bosphorus, control access to the Black Sea and handle approximately 3% of global oil supply. Turkey has NATO-level military capabilities and complete control over the strait's 700-meter-wide navigable channel. Turkey has already demonstrated willingness to use control of the straits for geopolitical leverage, closing them to Russian warships during the Ukraine conflict. Turkey could monetize this control by demanding transit fees for specific categories of cargo or vessels flagged to countries Turkey opposes. The fees would be structured as environmental protection charges, navigation safety surcharges, or infrastructure maintenance costs. But the function would be identical to Yemen's extraction mechanisms: pay tribute or face denial of strategic access. The pattern is universal across all strategic choke points. A modestly funded actor with anti-ship weapons and control of adjacent territory can threaten shipping sufficiently to spike insurance premiums, making alternative routes economically preferable. The actor then offers security guarantees in exchange for payments structured as humanitarian assistance, infrastructure development, or security cooperation.